Hello and welcome to the Lich King guide from learntoplaywao.com. The Lich King. I was expecting someone taller, someone more imposing, but well, this will have to do. The encounter, however, is fairly complex and has a lot of different mechanics that make it interesting. You will have to go through 3 major phases and a transition phase, so let's take them one at a time. This is phase 1 and you got the Drudge Ghouls, small ads, and the big one, the Shambling Horror. Main tank tanks the Lich, off tank tanks the Shambling Horror, and your off tank also taunts some of the little ads. Infest does damage to the entire raid. It gets dispelled when the respective player is above 90% HP. Pre-shielding players helps. Infest is not really a major issue. The big ads, the Shambling Horrors, do a frontal cone attack which is dangerous. They should always face away from the raid. They have an enrage. They become larger and reddish and should be tranquilized. A shockwave while they are enraged is what's most dangerous about them. To be safe, you can stun and also dispel the enrage. Hunters should be the ones dispelling. If you are in 10 men and no hunter is around, a rogue can dispel using a weapon switch macro. You can't really spend too much time using AoE on the ads because you lose DPS on the Lich. This is where an important mechanic of this phase comes into play. It is the Necrotic Plague. 5 seconds after being infected with the plague, the target will take 150k damage, so the plague needs to be dispelled within 5 seconds. Once dispelled, it will jump to someone within 5 yards. It loses a stack when it gets dispelled, it gains one when someone dies. After 15 seconds of ticking, it ends. If you keep on dispelling it on players, it will never end. It has to go to the ads. Since the plague can jump to the ads, the idea in this phase is to let the plague kill the ads. So what you want to do is to dispel it next to an ad. Once it kills the ad, it will jump again and it will gain a stack. Eventually, it will jump to the Shambling Horror and kill it. Each extra jump causes the Lich to gain a buff that increases his damage done. So you don't actually want to instantly dispel the plague. Give it a couple of seconds before dispelling. The plague jumps act as a soft enrage. Too many jumps and the Lich becomes too powerful. You need to take him to 70% before he gets too many buffs and one-shots the tank. Now, controlling which way the jump goes may be a bit tricky as positioning and movement is concerned. Here is how we did it. We had our infected player running closer to the horror off tank and he would get dispelled there. Notice the debuff on the top right. I have the plague on me. I go to the off tank and get dispelled. I have to move fast since I only get 5 seconds before the plague hits me. Don't confuse this debuff with the infest debuff. So we had no major AoE on the ads, we just let the plague handle them. On their kill, Vodka had the Shambling Horror to a side. Paragon had it closer to the raid. They both used some AoE, with Paragon even single targeting the Shambling Horrors. So, if your DPS is good enough, you can care less about the plague and just AoE them down. Keeping the plague during the transition phase can kill the tank afterwards, as the Lich will reach 40 stacks from the spells during the transition. That is why at 72% we called for a DPS stop. The Lich casts the plague. Player with the plague, the one with an X on his head, he goes to the off tank. He gets dispelled, we DPS the Lich and we push into the transition phase. Notice the Lich runs to the center as we run to the outer edge and the ground starts to glow. We don't go near the ads for a couple of seconds and let the plague fall off. Then we go for the Raging Spirits. This is the transition phase. It happens when the Lich reaches 70% and then again at 40%. We got the healer group, the ranged group and the melee tanks group. We want to be spread out in order to avoid damage from pain and suffering. The more you are spread out, the less it stacks. The player marked for getting a Raging Spirit moves to the tank. It drops it there, then moves back. We DPS the spirits, careful as they also have a frontal cone attack. First Raging Spirit gets tanked by the main tank, second and third by the off tank. Some ranged kill the frost orbs. The ground will light up as you need to run in. 70% to 40% is phase 2 and new types of adds, Valkyrs, will spawn. These pick you up, drag you to the edge and then drop you down. They need to be killed before they reach the edge. They can and should be slowed down and stunned. Assign decays to chains of ice them and rogues to stun them. Hunters should also use frost traps and so on. Since the Valkyrs drag you to the nearest edge, you can control in a way the direction they move in by having the raid bunched up on a side. This way, the Valkyrs move together towards the same edge, and you can AoE and cleave DPS them faster. This strategy is however fairly vulnerable to Defile. Big and black, it ticks and grows each time a player stands in it. Having too many players bunched up means you risk taking extra ticks, and then something like this might happen before you can even realize it. So for this phase, watch out for the players shouting "Defile on me." Stay way clear of the Defile. Stun, slow and cleave DPS the Valkyr. Soul Reaper does serious damage on the tank 5 seconds after being applied, so use some cooldowns to survive. You get a 5 seconds warning. Since it is casted every 30 seconds, it is best to manage cooldowns between tank and off tank, with each tank taking a Soul Reaper every minute. A new transition is at 40% and then phase 3 is from 40% to 10%. Again, new adds, Vile Spirits this time. They explode on a 5-yard radius when they reach the targeted player. Notice they float above the Lich for a couple of seconds before coming down. Start using AoE immediately. You should be able to take down most of them before they reach the floor. Ranged should be spread out. Run away from other people if you are targeted. If you are okay with the enrage timer, play it safe, stay spread out and focus on surviving. Defile and Soul Reaper are still used in this phase. Harvest Soul is the solo act of this battle. It does 40k on 10 men, 90k on 25 men on the targeted player. Use a damage reduction cooldown on that player and try to keep him alive. If the player does survive, he will then be ported to Frostmourne room, where he will have to help Terenas kill the Spirit Warden. He can help Terenas either by DPSing the spirit or by healing Terenas. The more HP Terenas has, the more damage it will do. It helps a lot to interrupt or dispel the spirit cast. Players have 1 minute to kill the spirit. If they fail, the Lich gets 15 seconds of enrage. At 10% everybody will die. Don't release, this is part of the encounter. Just listen and watch what's going on. I'm not going to spoil it for you, so this is where the Learn to Play WoW guide ends. Thanks for watching.